just having deep understanding and compassion for where each other are at, because parenting brings up the inner child in the parents. And so what's really fascinating to me is that, you know, for many of us on this spiritual path, we can feel like, oh, we've got it, we're good, we found the partner. And then you have kids and you feel like you just spun around and you go back to base one again, and you revisit your childhood and everything that is unresolved within you.
Welcome, beautiful beings, to season 2 of the Cosmic Love Antenna podcast with your host, Harrison Ma. This podcast sets the loving intention of creating the mystical space needed to pull back the layers restricting health, alignment, and love. Now let's walk you home to your cosmic spiritual heart space. Good evening, morning, afternoon, beautiful beings. Welcome back to the show and another loving deep dive into a powerful, loving, spiritual topic today. Before I get the divine pleasure to introduce the beautiful soul I have on the show today, a quick reminder to all of the new and returning tribe members and members of the soul family. If you get a lot of value and guidance and insight out of this chat today, remember to share this out far and wide with a friend, a lover, and a family member. If you have anything that bubbles up, any feedback, comments, or reviews, remember you can always leave them over on Apple and Spotify. This helps us expand the light of this show. And finally, remember, I'd encourage you to listen to the end of this chat today, because the powerful Lucy, who I'll introduce here in a second, has a lot to share. And I can already feel, just starting this chat, a lot is going to come up. So you want to make sure you soak all of it up. Speaking of which, the powerful Lucy Proud is a spiritual educator, an intuitive soul guide, a loving and power of the wise woman inside, and is a heart-centered soul. We're going to have a chat today about all things heart-centered parenting, mothers and their intuition, the ceremony of being in that divine feminine, birth preparation, liquid crystals, meditation, and so much more. Lucy, welcome to the Cosmic Love Antenna.
Thank you, Harrison. So lovely to be here. And thank you for that beautiful introduction. It's absolutely everything that I'm really passionate about, and just really so excited that this is the journey that I'm on, and the journey that I am embodying and continuing to embody, you know, each and every moment, each and every day. And, you know, the parenting one is big, because those kids, they really, you know, show up, you know, and bring up everything, you know, that takes you on that journey of going deeper within.
Yeah. And I can't wait to get into all the pieces of this today with you, Lucy, but just to set off this conversation, it's been nice to connect to you. Obviously, This is our first time doing this deeper chat, but when we first had our pre-chat a month ago, 2 months ago now, I can feel that passion that you have. I can feel that alignment that you have to this work that you're doing in the world. And in many ways, and this is sort of where I want to start this conversation, it begins in the heart, and it begins in that connection to that deeper space. So let me ask you, Lucy, to start this journey together. If you had to describe in your own words, what is heart-centered parenting?
Oh, there are so many words. I'll try and be discerning. Heart-centered parenting. I want to make the distinction between heart-centered parenting and my personal relationship with the language of conscious parenting, which is a very big buzzword at the moment. Mm-hmm. And I think for me, there is a very big distinction, because conscious parenting, and it's so fabulous that, you know, everybody and parents are exploring the yearning to be more conscious, you know, with who they are in relationship to raising their children. But a lot of that is still knowledge, and it is very much in the mind, and you know, we as humans are still exploring what's right, what's not right in that arena. But when you take away that noise and you step into the heart and you really connect with who you are as a human and a spiritual being, and that love that is, ever present beyond the noise of the mind and beyond what other people or other parents are doing in the world. The parenting is led from that space of intuition and that space of love, and that's all the kids need. It doesn't matter what we, get wrong or right. It's as long as they feel the love and they feel the connection, they feel like they're at home.
All the kids need. Just want to pull that out for a moment here, because I'm not a parent, and who knows, it's maybe in my path stepping forward, but I can observe, as someone that has worked with a lot of people that have children and have children come into my life in many different ways. I feel as the adult in the situation, it can be very easy to apply our projections of what we feel like we need on top of them, right? So when you say dropping down to that heart and then stepping into that relationship dynamic with the children, I could say it's easy because I live in this world. But I think for most people listening, even the most consciously aware, like you alluded to, that's still difficult. So yeah. I guess the question to you within that is, what's the first step in moving through that difficulty?
Look, I wanted to say self-love to begin with, because it is difficult. And, I don't want to project or paint this picture that because I'm passionate about heart-centered parenting and I've been on this journey for many, many years, more than half my life now, not as a parent, but as my active spiritual journey. There are still many, many moments where I am challenged, as a parent, and I'm learning and growing. And my oldest one is only just 5. So, I've only been in that scope for that many years, human years.
Well,
but
Lucy, just to interrupt super quick, just to give you a bit of love, I think you awakened to a remembrance of gifts around parenting.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. And it has become something that's very active in my field, especially, at this phase of my life. And I do very much feel that I am remembering, and that these star children that have come to this planet, and you and I are both star children. Most people on this, pretty much everybody who is under 40 is a star child, because that's the frequency that we're living in now. But, since we've had so much energy and so many shifts on this planet in the last sort of 7 to 10 years, especially, the geometry in our beings is really coming online, and we are needing to step into that frequency of feeling and remembering who we are. And that really is the first step, to parenting, is if we remember who we are as spiritual and human beings and infinite beings, and that infinite light and love, then that becomes active or stays active in the child, because the baby is born, the human is born with that, or their knowing already intact. It's only the conditioning that gets layered on top of that becomes a little heavy, and it's a little harder to navigate, how to remember who we are. And I'm pretty sure most of your listeners can relate to that. It's this knowing that, yes, I know this, but I'm just not sure how to break free.
You say that so politely as well. You say that it's a little heavy to move through. I would use probably a bit more dense words to describe it, but it's true, right? It's never been more heavy. I don't want to make this a hyperbolic statement, and I know we could probably definitely pull out moments in the dark ages or prehistoric ages where there was dinosaurs or whatever the thing was, but in many ways, if you look at, I'll just give this example. I don't think there's ever been a time in our human history where the terrain outside of us has been so against us, has been so, yeah, maybe there were dinosaurs, maybe there were animals, but even in those contexts, we had an opening and a connection to the land, and that helped us through those external terrain challenges, where now we don't even have that connection. You could say it's innate, but the layers that you just spoke about, they come on top and then they disconnect us. So one, I wonder if that resonates, if you agree with that, and two, how do we move through that?
Okay, I want to say yes and no to your answer, because I feel like what you say is absolutely apt, and for so many of us, because now we're living lives where we're disconnected from nature and the natural cycles of life. And when the child is born, they're born into a house, and maybe they don't go outside for a little while, and maybe they don't watch stargaze at night. So they can't speak to their star mothers and star fathers, and they have all these memories in them, but they're not validated in the world. And then, we as humans grow up and we have a lot of noise in the world, like you're talking about, a lot of, and we might not have life-threatening situations, you and I, though that does exist in the world on our planet at the moment. However, we have a lot of war on the level of the mental plane and consciousness. At the same time, that is existing because we are elevating so quickly, and the opportunity to just step over that bridge and step onto the other side is there at every moment. And that is one of the things that, on my journey, because when I was born and from a very young age, I remembered, I had a very active connection to spirit, and it wasn't validated in my world. So I ended up being quite confused about who I was and what I was meant to do in this lifetime. However, when I look back now, all I can say is, but I knew from the very beginning. I just needed an environment that could allow me to remain free, to be who I knew I was. And so that's what excites me, because I feel like a lot of this is just going back to the simplicity of stepping into heart, stepping into connection with nature, which is what we all need, but especially, the children, to, sync their biorhythms, to sync, the hormones in their body, and the rest of it is just letting them lead and following and responding.
I'm really excited and passionate. I feel the passion in you, in me, my friend, in this work that's cultivating this environment as the parents, right? Because that's the parents are creating or allowing many of those components that you just spoke about. I want to go back. I want to pull out a term that you said for people that might have missed it, and I want to break it down a little bit here now. You've mentioned star children and star child. I've referred to this as star seed in a few episodes I've talked about, and similar names for the same sort of concept and understanding. And it's important right now because I'm sure you experience this. In my world, I have a lot of people that come to see me that while they are here on this earth, there is simultaneously an urge to be somewhere else. There is simultaneously and maybe we could talk about the trauma around this, but there was an urge to almost disconnect and go back to a place that they've been before. So I'm wondering, my friend, how do you approach this within the parenting world, and how do we start to embrace the balance between appreciating our starry connections, but also be here on this earth for the reason we're meant to be here?
I love this conversation. Look, I mean, I think you probably have a wide audience that, can really connect with the truth that our origins are the star origins. That is where we come from, and it is how we were seeded. And so, yes, we absolutely remember this energy of being in the stars that is also connected to that beautiful frequency of love and light and harmony and balance and everything that we seek as human beings. So when life and our environment doesn't validate that, doesn't look like that, yes, we do tend to want to kind of retreat, disconnect, and go, oh, but, that feels so much better over there. And, in the landscape of parenting and children, what I've really started to connect with is that, they don't need to know their ABCs and their 1, 2, 3s. They need to know who they are and where they came from. And when that is validated, it opens up a safe space for them. Mm. And in my experience of parenting, my youngest one is only almost 11 months. So I say I'm parenting to sort of two toddlers or 2 children with this landscape right now. But I've always had conversations with them, even from birth, about the stars. And, we help our children as young beings synchronize with nature and understand. We don't even teach them about the stars. We just allow them to formulate their own connection and remember their own divine connection. And so it's a part of their everyday conversation of, the sun and the moon and the stars and who they are and that they came from somewhere else. And when we stargaze, we talk about which stars we're connected to, feel connected to, and, and the animals and how they are powerful, healers that can help us, and we can talk to nature. And my point being is that when we can open up that dialogue and let them be free to explore that true connection with energy and frequency and their own inner divinity, is that I have seen my children develop really quickly, and their intelligence is incredible. And we've never put a weighted value on knowledge or intelligence, but it's showing up. It's showing up that the more connected they are, the more switched on they are. Mm. And that's the beautiful thing. So we can take away all that noise that, the schooling system and the external environment thinks that we need, to reach these milestones, and they have to walk at a certain age, and they have to know this and they have to know that. And we can just let them be free. And it's all there. The codes are all there within them.
I want to pull out a word that you said. It almost erupts once we tick that box of safety, once we tick that box of safety, support, and security, which in many ways is the role of the parent, right? It's energetically. This is why I'm so passionate in my work to really incorporate chakra work, right? It's the reason that root center is so important, and it's the first space that we need to give attention to, because once we do, like you just beautifully highlighted, it ripples up, right? It ripples up into our different spaces of awareness and a third eye and our heart expanding and our intelligence and all the things. So it shows the role and the reminder of that foundation. But I want to go back a bit here, and I'm jumping around to people listening to a lot of different aspects of the parenting. So bear with me, because I'm just sort of flowing with this. I got the chance to meet your lovely partner, Simon, just before the chat. And as you were just expressing about this beautiful education and support and the stars and connecting to nature, what came up for me was this desire to have a partner that is on the same frequency that we are, so these conversations can be had. So the question here for people that are not just looking to parent and create life and do all this, but also bring in partnership that is in the same frequency so you can step forward together. How does that occur? Is it manifesting? Is it luck? Is it conscious creating? What's your perspective on this?
I feel it's, first and foremost about doing the work to find yourself, because then you will naturally attract that like-minded being. And I feel that we both, when we look back and reflect on the lives that my husband and I had before we even met each other, it almost parallels. We really did, obviously we had other relationships and whatnot, and life teaching us in various ways, but we both were looking for that true connection and that like-minded energy frequency. And right from the start, of course, we have conversations all the time about, different star beings, past lives, or, I say past lives in inverted commas because it's, there's no past, present, future for me, but, in the human realms, what I am alluding to, but, and it was very easy. It was the easiest relationship I've ever been in. But of course, it comes with its challenges as well. However, when it comes to parenting, it makes it really harmonious if both mom and dad, or primary carers, mum and mum, or dad and dad, are on the same page, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, on that same journey. Doesn't mean that we have to be, reaching those milestones at the same time, but just having deep understanding and compassion for where each other are at, because parenting brings up the inner child in the parent. And so what's really fascinating to me is that, for many of us on this spiritual path, we can feel like, we've got it, we're good, we found the partner. And then you have kids and you feel like you just spun around and you go back to base one again, and you revisit your childhood and everything that is unresolved within you.
Let's talk about that, because that's actually, you tuned into my heart, my friend. That was a download I got yesterday that I really wanted to make sure I talk to you about, is this relationship between our inner child healing and becoming a parent. And I think it's both, like you said, another new challenge and pain that we can move through, and also an opportunity for our own healing, right? How I describe this, and I want to hear your perspective on this, is our children now become the divine mirror for our inner child, right? Everything that child is bringing up in us and triggering in us and I'm using my fingers here, making us feel, is our own relationship to our own inner child being. Yeah. So I guess let me ask this question to start off this chat is, where do we start with this? Where do we start with our inner child work with the children that we're learning to parent through our hearts?
I mean, just through awareness. If we can have that awareness and we can see clearly, that's how, my husband and I operate in life. And I don't mean with every little tantrum or every little emotional expression that our kids go through, because they have their own landscape of frequency that has nothing to do with us as well. And that's where being connected to your own intuition is really, really important, because we can read in our children the parts of themselves that are their own soul wounds or their own soul lineage.
Yeah, that's big. That's just people listening. That's a big distinction. Yeah. Yeah,
absolutely. And then we can read very clearly the stuff that is within us. And of course, that it's not that difficult to read, because you will have a visceral feeling around the stuff that triggers, your own wounds, or, and mothers and fathers definitely have different different platforms of stuff that comes up, because the role of the mother is to nurture and the role of the father is to provide, and that really is at the basics, the simplicity. But the child will take that mother and father as the role model and learn how to navigate their emotions through mum or through whoever is acting as that feminine role in the parenting landscape. And then they will look to the father for the mental and masculine, how to exert their will, how to exert their personal power in the world. And that becomes, the foundation for how they learn in life. And I just want to quickly say that, you were talking about the chakra system. Well, the children, for the first 7 years of their life, are setting the foundation for their chakra system, the 7 years. And whatever is kind of seeded in the subconscious in that time, that's not a scary thing. It can be a beautiful, beautiful thing. It just, life is, you can't always get everything perfect, but whatever they are capturing in their energy bodies in the first 7 years is the foundation for how they see. It's like a lens for how they see the rest, see the rest of their steps moving forward in the future years.
I think the chakra expansion and growth it's a beautiful opportunity for both dynamics, the children and the parents, and there are different perspectives on how the chakras develop, but the common theme is that there is this evolution throughout childhood. And when we start to do our inner child work within the parent dynamic, and I'll just drop this tip for people listening, and I'll put some, for new listeners, I've done many inner child episodes and I'll put them in the show notes. But one of the tools that I use that I think can be powerful is, especially going back to what you said about discerning what is theirs and what is ours and what needs to be moved through, is a simple affirmation of connecting into our heart and asking, is this mine? Right? Asking, being with that, allowing yourself to feel that energy, feel that frequency, maybe connected to a specific chakra center, and honestly asking, right, is this mine? Is this something for me to look into at this moment? And listening. What are your perspectives on that?
Absolutely. Well, what comes to mind is just, and I feel like a lot of parents are really struggling with this, especially maybe whoever the carer is that does the primary staying at home or looking after children, who has sacrificed, not sacrificed, that's a terrible word, who has decided, for me, I have dropped back a lot of the work that I do in the world to be more present with my children. And it's really important not to feel guilty for asking for your own needs to be met and asking for that space to do what is necessary to make you more balanced and feel more peace and harmony. And, I feel like my husband and I, we're very grateful that we had a lot of our own practices in place before we had children, because it does make it a lot more fluid. We're not trying to learn new skills right now for ourselves. However, finding the space and creating the time to get our own needs met has really been one of the biggest challenges for us. And we committed to it every day. And we make sure that we each have that space for ourselves, and we become more balanced, and our kids, reflect that to us, and we have more fun together, and it really is about being very intentional with the time and the space that you create for the entire family, for the home, for yourself, for life.
Yeah. This brings up another question I want to ask you here, my friend, and I'll add a bit of context here. As you're describing being very intentional with the space that you create and being present, this requires energy to a degree. And if we're, getting lost in our work, getting lost in other commitments, then our energy is depleted. So then when we are showing up with our children, as parents, it can be hard for us to connect into that reservoir to then create the space needed. So this really is a discussion around nourishment, right?
Yeah.
Nourishment, and not just, when I say nourishment, not just the things that we put into our body. It's definitely those things, food, but also emotional nourishment, right? And spiritual nourishment. So I guess let's speak to that, my friend. What do you think is the role here? What are your thoughts on really being mindful of this nourishment idea?
Well, I feel that it's really important to identify for the individual, for the parent, what is it that does nourish them? For me, it's, first and foremost is being able to have that space to meditate, but not meditate as in just sit there and be quiet, but meditate to connect with spirit and to connect with, my energy and that beautiful frequency. And that's the space that I love. And that a lot of the work that I do is teaching people how to actually step straight into spirit to so you don't have to, it's not about silencing the mind. It's about
opening the channel.
It's about just completely connecting. And when we can learn to do that on a daily basis, I can do that walking down the street when my kids are crying, and funnily enough, they don't cry when I'm walking down the street. But, in those moments where you are tested and challenged and there's noise and that's not what you want, because noise is really fun. You can have a lot of fun with children and noise, and it's playfulness. But when that's not what you're needing, you have to be able to step in and create that for yourself within your internal landscape. But there are other things that I need too, like a swim at the beach without children, 3 children dragging me under the water, and a cup of tea in the morning, being able to do a little bit of, my service work and giving back and working towards, offering and helping other people. And my husband's the same. He works more than me at the moment, but he has his own physical needs. And we completely tailor our life around that.
Yeah.
If somebody needs to get up early because they need to exercise and make juice before the kids wake up, we do it. Yeah. Because it nourishes us.
And, what I'm hearing again is self-love, as you brought up before.
They're all acts of self-love.
Yeah. And I want to pull out a word that I don't think it was a coincidence that you shared as a quote unquote mistake. You said sacrifice before. And going back to a lot of the programming that is projected onto us. And I say this with love. I don't think it's all religious, but I do think there is a big part of religious programming that for both the kids and us as parents, we're conditioned to feel that as parents, and please correct me if I'm wrong here, but this is my perception, that as parents, we need to sacrifice ourselves for them, because again, my fingers are up. Being a good parent means sacrificing ourselves for the needs of the kids. To be a good parent means that I need to put all my resources in and make sure they have the life that they deserve, and then it's me. Then I'm next.
Yeah, it's big. It's really big. There's a huge conditioning that we kind of need to rip out and turn on its head. And we are seeing it, with the rise of, Instagram and Facebook and a lot of, people creating their own businesses around, parenting and in the wellbeing arena. We are seeing that it is self-love first and self first. For some people, that's a difficult, pill to swallow. It doesn't make sense to them. They think they need to kind of give. But again, it's about modeling. And if the child doesn't see the parent learn to give to themselves, they won't learn that as a core value.
It's big.
And I get goosebumps saying that, because that is, that just came out of my mouth. But that's where it starts. And when I became mother, I was aware that, giving birth, or even before that, conception, that even the decision to have a baby, conception, the 9 or so months of pregnancy and the actual physical state of giving birth were all initiations. And I let we call it the maiden, but the younger aspect of me, the archetype, I let those layers be shed. So there was space for the mother to be born. And so therefore, when my life changed on the physical landscape of, feeding a baby multiple times a night and changing nappies and, really responding to somebody else's needs as well as my own, I was 100% ready for that. And I wasn't yearning for my old life. And I'm pretty sure that my partner, my husband, felt the same. We both consciously took those initiations. And then, the final act of the initiation is just suddenly being a parent, and you just move through it because you've got no other option.
Yeah, and you stood in it. So
yeah,
I think I'm happy you brought up these archetype and this transition and initiation, and it goes back to awareness, right? Archetypes aren't good or bad. You need to understand where you're at and what is needed and what you need to change. And just going back to what we were saying about sacrificing, and there are many archetypes that you could associate with that, but I think one that pops up is the martyr, right? Or the victim. And at certain places, those archetypes are needed. But when it comes to this parenting conversation, we need to bring awareness and ask ourselves, is this what's needed for the nourishment of the relationship for both parties, right? For the child and us. And just for parents listening that are maybe coming to awareness of this, it's not to, in that moment when you catch an archetype that's maybe stayed a bit longer than it's needed, we're not there to judge. We're not there to shame. We're not there to guilt ourselves. We see it. We appreciate it for what it did give us. And then we transition. Because if we blame in that moment and shame ourselves, then we're just adding more layers of separation that's going to make it more difficult in the end. Is that
absolutely?
Do you agree with that, my friend?
Absolutely. It's about, the vision that I get is that, we are actually becoming one with that archetype and transmuting and transforming into who we need to be in the next moment and the next moment and the next moment. And that does actually change every day, especially in the scope of parenting. You need to show up as different aspects of yourself. But for me, they're all the one. If you can actually bring them all together in unity, they're just beautiful, divine expressions. And again, as parents, my husband and I, we're not afraid of those moments where we meet or discover, those wounds or those unresolved aspects of ourselves, or maybe we go into that unconscious state of the victim or the sacrifice, feeling like, oh, I did all the parenting today and I've had no time for myself. That's a pretty common scenario with young parents pre-schooling age, because you're on all the time. But again, we are committed to working through that together, and we take, I want to call it radical responsibility all the time for the stuff that comes up. And also the self-love aspect is knowing that it's safe to express that, because children don't need you to be peaceful and harmonious all the time. Again, they're modeling off you. They don't understand language the way that we do as adults. So they're feeling frequency and energy and vibration. That is their primary language, especially as a star being. And so, but they need to know that it's safe to express. And if we can express, and, then that is a healthy state for them to model off, that it's safe to have big emotions. It's safe to feel. It's safe to be out of control.
Yeah. I just want to underline that for not just the men listening that are looking to connect into deeper parts of themselves and their divine feminine, but also the women to a degree, right? This is a conversation around divine masculine and feminine balance. No matter whether you are in a male body or a physical body, that expression that you were just talking about and those sensitivities and that flow, it occurs usually in balance, right? When we allow our own masculine to hold ourselves, so then that feminine can release. And it's not, there's no, again, no good or bad here. It's just what is needed in the time. Lucy, I want to go into another topic here, and I want to make sure we get this in because it may open up some rabbit holes. So, and we can go down as deep as you feel we need to. Let's go back to another stage of the parenting process. And this is actually preparing for birth preparation. And maybe it's at a different stage, so correct me if I'm wrong. But you work with something called liquid crystal remedies.
I do.
And I'm wondering if you could speak to this, maybe one, describe what it is, and two, what is its relevance to heart-centered parenting and the birth preparation?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a huge conversation. We can rabbit hole down, but let's see what comes out. Look, the liquid crystals are such an incredible modality. They are liquid light technology seeded by the Pleiadians. Our own frequency and geometry as human beings remembers what this modality is, this liquid light technology, because we are liquid light. We are, water and energy and frequency. That's what our bodies are. They, come in a little bottle. They look like any kind of other vibrational remedy that you can, that is out there at the moment. However, they are completely different because there's nothing in the bottle except for the geometry and the water. And the reason that's important is because when you take a remedy, and they act sort of homeopathically, so you take some drops, 7 drops or 3 drops, and you put that into your body, your liquid light body, the geometry that is encoded in that bottle activates in your body. And they're called the liquid crystals because the geometry that has been created or sequenced for each of the remedies is the geometry of the varying crystals. So you can take rose quartz or clear quartz or a black tourmaline or amethyst, and you can take a combination of all. There's remedies, there's trinities for activating specific chakras. So the heart chakra medicine, but they are so powerful for the children. Because this is why they're here. They are remembering that they are in this emotional, energetic blueprint of liquid light energy. And so this is medicine. It's really potent medicine for the child. And it's completely natural, organic, nothing in there. You can't have a bad reaction to it. So that's a huge win. But I was drawn to this modality because I remembered this modality from, my Pleiadian, activation, the memories I have of living in that.
Let me jump in here, Lucy, because there's so many questions already bubbling up. And I'm already thinking, just for people listening, I think I might do another episode with you just where we talk about this because, there's a lot in here that we can dive into. But for now, let me just ask a question. If people are interested in this and they want to research more, what's the best place for them to go find out more information? Just Google it. What's the good place?
Just Google it. It's theliquidcrystals.com.au, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that the website's being redone at the moment, but you can get sort of a basic rundown. A lot of the information isn't available that usually is. You can also get in contact with me, and I'm sure that you will share my details at the end. One of the offerings that I do offer is a liquid crystal healing or reading. So we go into the frequency of the name that you were born with. So Harrison, I'm assuming that's your birth name. and that can be decoded into a crystal. So can, if you have a middle name and a last name, and we can work with, prescribing you those remedies so that you can really very quickly jump, on path, on purpose, into the heart, and work with whatever is, standing in the way of, you just traveling on that, soul path, that soul journey.
It's interesting because, so this is, when we first had a chat, we talked about this. It was my first time hearing about it. And now as you're going deeper into it, I'm tuning into it for the second time now. And what it brings up in me, just for connection to people listening, is it's another opportunity, if this resonates with your heart, to move through resistance that comes up in your life that needs to be seen, right? And I know along my soul path, especially being a star child and a star seed, there are moments that we run into that we feel so confused, right? We feel so, why do I feel so extra? Why am I so heightened at this moment in time? Why did I have that particular reaction? Why is my, insert this spiritual sense, why is it activated right now and I'm seeing these things? And it sounds like, just from what you're explaining with this technology, this is a support system. This is a net. This is a framework. This is a book. This is a structure that, again, going back to the energetic chakra system, allows us to feel safe, secure, and supported, so then we can transcend that energy and realize why it's there. Yeah. Is that a good analysis of it?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, these remedies, you can have a sore arm and take, or a weak digestion, and we can go on that, very physical plane of healing. But, for the children especially who are born into this world where we're still kind of transitioning out of that mental patriarchal energy, so then that's not a harmonious frequency for them to be in, for us to be in, but we've learned to navigate that, as well as we can so far. But the children, can be prescribed particular crystals that will anchor them into their frequency, to remind them of who they are, the job or jobs they came to do on this planet. And it's a wonderful tool to, help a child who is still learning how to create their own balance in the world, to keep them anchored and less distracted about, with the noise, that isn't matching, who they are meant to be in this world.
Can you explain, Lucy, with your own children, how have you incorporated that into their process? Did you do something before birth? Are you continuing to use it now as they're growing? What does that look like practically?
Yeah, well, I do tend to use them sometimes on and off, sometimes, on for a long periods of time. Again, it's a very intuitive way that I just, work with them. But for my own children, I absolutely use them in pregnancy. That's such a wonderful, if anybody has an opportunity, if the mother has an opportunity to start working with liquid crystals right from even preconception, but conception throughout their pregnancy, to help their own body find balance. And then that becomes this harmonious home.
Landing pad.
Yeah, I used them in birth, and I had, 100% my dream births. And I don't want to put a disclaimer on that saying that, these liquid crystals are going to, guaranteed. I was willing to do the work and move through the layers of resistance and fears and whatever came up, for me regarding the births that I wanted to have. However, the liquid crystals guided me every single way. I put them in the bath, for my, my water births. I gave the kids liquid crystals to help, them anchor their, when the baby is born, they're still very much tethered to their
starry seed.
And so to help them in an organic timing anchor into the physical body. with children, even things like a lot of children that don't sleep well, have behavioral issues or, emotional outbursts. They're just all signs of imbalance. The child not quite knowing how to create balance in themselves so they can land in their body.
Yeah.
And they can be used for everything. Yeah. And,
it's such a contrast. It's such a contrast. Can I just a quick question, Lucy? Did you have a hospital birth or a home birth, or what was
I had 3 planned home births, so my 3 babies. My first one, we did go into hospital just because he was feet first, was needed. However, I had a really beautiful, unique scenario where my home birth midwife at the time had employment rights at the hospital, so we could just be shuffled into this birthing suite, and we had nothing to do with the hospital. It was just a safety thing. And, that was actually wasn't my plan, but it happened. And in hindsight, it was where I was at the time. Yeah. I then went on to have a home birth and then a free birth with my last one. And that was the progression that I yearned to take, the ultimate, just me and my partner in our room, birthing our baby in the birth pool.
So it's, I'm happy that it's interesting that you had that progression, because it's going back to what you were saying before about adding in the liquid crystals and making that sort of spiritual starseed landing pad for them to come in and just start this life. I think for most births in traditional hospitals, and again, I think it's needed to a degree, like you experienced. For most people, it's the exact opposite of what you were describing in helping that soul land, through the fluorescent lights and the technology and all the things that we could do a whole episode on. It creates its own trauma story. It creates its own layer of illusion even before they've started with. So I just express that because I want people listening to realize they have a choice.
Yeah.
Right. And if that choice is the hospital, beautiful. But realizing that there are other options out there. And then if you tune into that intuition, like you were talking about, it may direct you down a different path, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And, choices do change as we evolve. And if I had interesting enough, my youngest, who we free birthed, actually came out breech as well. And we didn't even know, obviously, because we had a free birth. And so that means no medical intervention at all. So no scans and whatnot. And I was at a place within myself where I knew no matter what position the baby was in, that I was going to be okay with that. It was only when that she came out and I said to my husband, "Oh, that's not a head." But, I do want to respond to what you were saying before. And, while, my oldest, that was what we needed, because I wasn't, my midwife was saying she wouldn't birth a breech baby at home, which is fine. That was in her realms of her boundaries. And then I wasn't at, a mental and emotional state where I felt as confident as I did in my second and my third. Your first birth is very different. That I do feel like we had to navigate through a little bit more trauma with my oldest, the one that was born in hospital.
Yeah.
And that showed up as, being a little bit more unsettled. And, there's the first time parenting kind of energy around that too. So I feel like he kind of copped it, and there's nothing wrong with that. That was the agreement that we, kind of went into together. But we have definitely had to counterbalance a lot more than my babies that were born at home. And even there was even a difference between a assisted home birth and a free birth, 100%, huge difference. And that, again, they're just choices. There's no right or wrong. There's, healthy, happy baby is the most important thing. However, I have become quite passionate about the information that can come to light to help empower women and the men, because you have to, and whoever your birth partner is has to be on board as well. My husband was 100% on board. So I was, again, it was just a reflection of that we were journeying together and working through stuff together.
To add another layer to this, and thank you for sharing that, Lucy, because it's so important for people to acknowledge one, the choice, but then what ripples out from those choices. But also, because I know this conversation can bring up a lot of guilt and shame for making a particular choice. Let's use your example of the hospital birth. To assuage that guilt and shame, I mean, it could be enough for me to say that you don't need to hold on to that. You can just release that. But I think what could support this is realizing, who's to say that soul that came in did not have that as a part of their journey to experience, right? Did not have that exact experience in the hospital with all the things. There was some kind of, if we want to talk about karma, if we want to talk about past life, trend, something that happened for that soul in that experience, right? And you holding guilt and shame around that choice that you made is stopping the progression of that lesson. Yeah. Do you agree with that, my friend?
I mean, there's a lot of guilt and shame in the parenting arena, full stop.
Yeah.
And, part of that is about, going back to listening to your heart and drowning out the external noise, because it doesn't matter. I actually found that one of the most judgmental spaces was the natural parenting arena, because there's this ideal around that. And interestingly enough, I ended up gravitating towards a lot of my friends that were none the wiser, because there was no judgment. And that was just where I needed to be because of my own personal experience. But I did drop that. And, as souls, we absolutely choose the frequency, the vibration, the experiences that we need to come here on earth. And we know what we need to evolve. And when you can see life through that lens, then everything that occurs is the shame and the doubt and the worry can fall away.
Yeah.
Because everything is divinely perfect and everything holds wisdom, to be uncovered.
Beautiful. Well, I think that's a beautiful little full stop, my friend, on our beautiful chat today. I do have one more question for you, but before we get to that, I do want to give you a bit of space here now. I know last time we had a conversation, you were sharing with me that you're getting your light back out into the world and you have new offerings and new things to provide people. So if hearts have been pulled to your light and your soul today and the work that you do in the world and they want to find out more, is there anything that you want to share?
Yeah. So, a lot of the work that I have been doing is not exclusive to women, but primarily women and mums. That's the landscape that seems to be drawn to me, to help women reconnect with themselves, to help women and men reconnect with themselves so that they can move through life from a place of intuition, harmony, balance, and peace. That ultimately is my number one mission, is to help people activate their soul purpose and their intuition and their own inner guidance, their navigation system, so that they can really walk their path in their own truth and to connect with, true spirit and true energy. And from there, everything else falls into place. But I do work, as we were talking, with the liquid crystals. So I do see anybody, all ages. You can even use them on your animals. That's not my specialty. However, I do get a lot of, parents wanting to use them for their children. Any children under 7 can actually be, under 13, sorry, can actually be surrogated. So the mother or the father can actually, or primarily mother, can take the remedies for their children. If my children take them themselves now, but if that's something new, that's a really beautiful option. And the best way to get in touch with me is on my website, lucyproud.com.au, or through Instagram. That's really where I sort of exist at the moment. I share everything to Facebook, but I'm not actively on Facebook or any other social media. DMs are, very welcome, and any questions, queries, definitely send them through there, and we can just get in touch. And I will be doing a lot more group work, going back to group work throughout the year with an online community circle platform, which I'm really excited about, because that's a huge part of the work that I used to do with women, especially. The tribe
vibe,
yeah.
Right? For everyone listening, as always, I'll put all of Lucy's details and her links in the show notes. So you can just, if you're listening to this on Apple or Spotify, click the details and you'll see Lucy's website, and you'll find all of her lovely offerings over there. Lucy, thank you for sharing your light and presence with me today.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It's been a beautiful conversation.
It really has. The last question as we wrap this up, this is the Cosmic Love Antenna. And in many ways, a big part of the work that I do in the world is helping people connect back to the divinity and presence that they are. And that presence for me is love, is that deeper state of spiritual love. So I'm wondering, my friend, in your world, if you had to define that love word personally, how would you do so?
I want to say that all is, all that is. It really is the I am and the everything. That love is the foundation of who we are, and it's time we now remember. It really is, and it's as simple as remembering. Just like that. Lucy, thank you for your time today. I love you very much. And thank you, Harrison. You're so welcome. Beautiful listeners out there in the listening world, thank you for your time and your attention and your hearts today. I hope this landed deeply in that spiritual space. If it did, please share this far and wide. But regardless, Lucy and I love you unconditionally. Until next time here on the show, we send you light, we send you love, and we'll see you again soon. Bye, everyone. Thank you for listening to the Cosmic Love Antenna with me, your host, Harrison. If you gained value or this episode hit your heart, please remember to share this out with a friend, a family member, or a lover. You can also leave your love over on Apple reviews and Spotify star feedback, and this helps me spread my frequency to more souls in need. Finally, if you want to connect with me deeper, want to reach out, interested in coaching, please follow me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn at Harrison Meagher, spelled Meagher. Sending you so much love.